that was his thought process, you know, and other factors um, that drive black men to want to assimilate into the white conservative movement is the belief in the economic and the social mobility through the conservative party, which is a little bit confusing to me because you really don't associate the conservative party with social mobility. That's just not something that I would associate with the conservative party in relation to black people in their relationship with the white dominant conservative party. But many black conservative men argue that the policies promoted by like by movements like the Tea Party and the Make America Great Again movement, such as like tax cuts and deregulation, like I said earlier, they think that created opportunities for black men, especially with, especially they also believe that there would be economic advancement, which I don't know, I don't know, but take for example, I just thought about something. How about that goofy ass Tim Scott? The Republican senator from South Carolina. He's a primary example of this. Scott is the only black Republican in the United States Senate, and he has consistently advocated to assimilate with the white conservative base based on economic policies, almost primarily, and arguing that these policies provided the best pathway for all Americans, especially black Americans, to reach some kind of parity with their white counterparts. And Tim Scott, to me, is just a sad, sad case because each time he tried his best to ingratiate himself, especially within the MAGA movement, Donald Trump found a way to embarrass this man nationally, even by like walking by and wouldn't shake his hand, even though he introduced it. It just all kind of nonsense that Donald Trump would do to try to actually embarrass this man. And he would stand up there with this goofy smile on his face, clapping while he got humiliated with these within the white conservative, space. But dancing clowns like God Bless the Dead, Herman Cain, and that Cosby character reject, Tim Scott, they often tout the notion that black people, especially black men, are not all monoliths and they do this in order to defend why they are aligned with the Tea Party or the fact that they have become a Make America Great Again loyalist, and why they want to be a part of white conservatism. But Tim Scott's approach, to a degree, is rooted in the belief that the conservative economic policies can empower people to succeed, kind of much like how Herman Cain thought, and one of the bases for the conservative party, one of the theories that they have is, or one of the beliefs that they have is that, that we want to get as much government out of our life, which I kind of agree with that to a degree, but their positioning is very, very different from what aligns with black people. Their goals, their outcomes, very, very different. Their motivations, very, very different from us. But he and other black conservatives often viewed that platform as the opposite platform, like the Democratic Party, as fostering dependency, which I guess can be appealing to black men who prioritize those that prioritize like economic advancement and the views and the views of these policies also for them means achievement. So, but remember, we are not a monolith. Black conservatives joining these movements is also a strategic decision aimed at gaining political influence and visibility. At least that's what they believe. And for them, by aligning with a powerful influential movement like the Make America Great movement, a lot of black male conservatives think that they can elevate their platforms and that their advocacy for issues that matter to them um, would gain respect within the conservative political movement, which I don't know, which for them is a strong motivator in messaging that we are not all a monolith has been seen as a winning message to gain acceptance by the white conservative. If you don't believe me that the we are not a monolith um, mantra that is being touted, all you got to do is look at Dr. Ben Carson and what he decided to do and how he decided to align himself during the Trump administration. Dr. Ben Carson, a world-renowned, walking, talking, living, breathing Black history fact, a ultra talented genius of a neurosurgeon, was not tapped to be the United States Surgeon General. No, he was tapped to be the Secretary of the Housing and Urban Development Department under Donald Trump. He was tapped to be the head of HUD, the Section 8 agency. That's what they thought about Dr. Ben Carson. Now he wasn't good enough to be this genius and groundbreaking and courageous and talented Black man could not be elevated to the United States top medical doctor. No, we couldn't have that. We had to put that nigga, the head of HUD, the head of HUD, not a match at all. But because he felt, in my opinion, that we are not a monolith, that mantra, that was a winning strategy to ingratiate himself. But for many of us, Black folk who watched Ben Carson during that time, this was I would think, what is the word I want to, I'm trying to find the right words, that we saw this as a disrespect of what this man, not only what he has meant to the medical science, not only what he meant to medical science, the medical world, but what he's meant for the image of Blacks at the highest level. They just was like, we don't care what you did. You are not, we cannot have you as the world Surgeon General, even though you are this walking, talking, breathing, current day, pioneer. We can't have you, as the top medical doctor in the country. No, we can't have that. But here, go sit over here and be HUD. Dr. Ben Carson's "We Are Not a Monolith" messaging led to involvement in the MAGA platform and allowed him to, and what he was hoping that it would allow him to influence policies over there at HUD, but his role at the HUD, it was such a mismatch that he was an abject failure within the HUD. But to his credit, he's only one of about 3 people who actually survived the entire Trump administration, because Trump ran through so many people. Wasn't even funny at the various heads of the various agencies and departments within the federal government. But Dr. Ben Carson was one of the people who actually was in his role the entire Trump administration, which was remarkable. But but his role over there, man, it was embarrassing. Dr. Ben Carson, watching him there, it was embarrassing. Watching him testify about the various issues that were going on within HUD on Capitol Hill, it was embarrassing. It was cringeworthy. It was humiliating to watch this. But Dr. Ben Carson, we are not a monolith. That's what he was. Um, that was his mindset. We are not a monolith. Let me say this. I know I'm kind of, not really liking the term or expressing my distaste for those who tout we are not a monolith as some means to separate themselves. But let me say this. A group, there's nothing wrong with a group that take pride in not being a monolith. There's nothing wrong with a group want to celebrate or want to make sure that people understand that within the context of the group that there is diversity of thought, that there's individuality and that there's a range of perspectives. There's nothing wrong with that. But this mindset emphasizes that not every member of the group thinks, acts, or believes the same way, which can be empowering on an individual level who wishes to assert a unique identity. But in a society that often stereotypes and oversimplifies and marginalize communities, the rejection of a monolith thinking can be a form of resistance against uniformity, but in a way to highlight, I guess to a degree, highlight the rich complexities within the group. But you got to be careful. For instance, the phrase "we are not a monolith" is often mostly used by black men in the black community to reject stereotypes that paint all black people with a broad brush. I understand as a black man why we don't want to be lumped in or just made us, or there may assumptions be made about us. I understand that. However, while understanding and celebrating the diversity within our group, within our diaspora, it can also be complicated, to address all of the collective issues. So when a group is deeply divided by differences in opinion, like black folk are, or black men are, the priority of it can be challenging to mobilize around a common cause. We are already a deeply divided group, and black men and black women, we are already a deeply divided group. We're very fragmented. And to sit there and tout and to overemphasize and to try to assimilate into another group by preaching this nonsense that we are not a monolith, that can dilute black folks' social and political influence, and it can make it, and it also can make things a little bit harder for us to be taken seriously. The question is, shouldn't there be some things? Shouldn't there be some things, some issues, some stances, some offenses that we are definitely a monolith on? Why do we go? Why is there such a recent movement to overemphasize that we are not a monolith? Now, I'm not the most overly religious person in the world, but I do have a little bit of biblical knowledge, and based on my upbringing in the Bible, we can see examples of importance why not embracing the notion that we are not a monolith might not be the best path forward. For example, 1 Corinthians, 1st chapter, 10th verse, and it said, Paul urges the Corinthians to be united, saying, I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree with one another in what you say, in that there be no division among you, but that you be perfectly united in mind and thought.